when Gamuda land first started this, the question that was asked is, who do you expect to come and live here? Who do you expect to be here during the day? Who do you expect to be here at night? Will it be an expansion of Kota Kemuning, or are you talking about bringing a completely new community that's going to then take a life of its own? So it's really mapping out the surroundings and understanding who's already there.
Hi, my name is Jia-Ping Lee, and for the last 10 years, I've been an urban rejuvenator and a placemaker. Welcome to Soul Cities, a placemaker's guide to living. So I'm not just a placemaker, I'm also an urban rejuvenator. So I look at how to create economic vibrancy in a city. And economic vibrancy really is about creating or enabling entrepreneurship, startups, communities to thrive within any given area in a city. Placemaking is a tool for urban rejuvenation. And so I really wanted to help people understand what placemaking is by showing them best practice examples. Placemaking is about looking at places and saying, how can I bring communities together? Or how can I create a product that brings community together? Or how can I enable someone as a coach to actually start something or to support them to create longer term projects? Why I champion placemaking is because it has elements of humanity, which is so needed in rejuvenation of cities and places. So Mardiana Rahayu is an amazing architect and placemaker. She was the first to introduce placemaking in the corporate world. I met her in 2016 when she was then working for Gamuda Land, and she wanted a collaboration between Think City and Gamuda Land to really advocate internally the cause of placemaking, or why placemaking was so important. So before I came to Twentyfive7, I had heard a lot about Gamuda's foray into placemaking. The thing with placemaking is it's like landscaping. It looks the worst when you first open a project, and then it slowly becomes more and more beautiful. So I was very heartened when I drove into Twentyfive7 to see that it was human-centric. It was wide open spaces and with very little development. I hope that by watching this episode, other developers will understand the importance of bringing in a placemaker at a master planning stage. Because A, by putting people at the center of your development, you will gain profits. Today, we uncover how Mardiana Rahayu's placemaking approach has reshaped the heart of Twentyfive7. By prioritizing human-centric design from the start, she led the creation of a thriving, soulful community that stands as a testament to the power of thoughtful urban design and planning. Morning!
Good morning.
So thank you so much for doing this. Tell me a bit about yourself, Mardi.
Okay, my name is Mardiana Rahayu binti Tukaran, a little bit long, I know. I started in Singapore as an architect, and then I went to the UK to do a bit of urban design study. And that really opened a whole new world. And we'll be talking about it a little bit later, right? Which is placemaking.
Yes, yes. So let's jump right into placemaking, because I consider you as the first champion of placemaking in Malaysia.
Oh, thank you.
Because you were the first to reach out to me when I was in Think City. So I get asked this quite often. When you start with a greenfield, which means there's nothing there, so there is no community, how do you then bring the elements of community in?
So when Gamuda land first started this, the question that was asked is, who do you expect to come and live here? Who do you expect to be here during the day? Who do you expect to be here at night? Is there a difference? Will it be an expansion of Kota Kemuning, or are you talking about bringing a completely new community that's going to then take a life of its own, right? So it's really mapping out the surrounding 5-kilometer radius, 10-kilometer radius, and understanding who's already there. Yeah. So the first question that I ask is, what element in the master plan is it that we've been sort of ignoring or we've been turning our backs on? And one very obvious thing is the water. In the remaster plan, the first thing that I proposed for us to do was to bring the water from the inside of the residential area, which would otherwise be completely concealed from view, from public the public eye,
Yeah.
bring it forward, and instead of being shy of your reservoir, use it as a waterfront, right?
Yeah.
And then use the water really as the focus where your community starts from where the water is. It's really like going back to planning
Yeah,
101.
When you had this theory, and it was 2013, was it?
Around about there.
Yeah. Why hasn't it really taken off? Why is it that developers are still going back to the same old master planning approach? Why are there so many developers still ignorant of this, right? Or if they know about it, they just ignore it?
They don't realize that much as placemaking culminates in things like this, at a glance, you think, oh, I can do it myself.
Yes.
But they don't realize there's an entire theory, research, juxtaposition and understanding of data that comes before a placemaker then say, let's put the water in front.
Yes, yes.
And before I came in, everybody approached it like a typical master plan with roundabouts, with a reservoir inside, but only when you are trained in placemaking and urban design and all that thinking, are you able to look at it and troubleshoot and realize the opportunity and create things that you never knew you needed. So the ability to see ahead and create things that you never knew the community needed. So, you know, it's evolved, and I can see also because Gamuda was willing to look at interim use. So the football pitches that you see is the result of that thinking. And also Gamuda decided to densify a little bit, bringing a bit more of the population from the high rise, right? So Amber was created as a affordable product that then bring the right size community to then support the mall. So it was all thought through that way.
Yeah.
So generally it's evolved very nicely. It's taken a life of its own. Some of the aesthetics, I'm not so sure about some of the aesthetics. The pink flamingos are a bit of a problem to me, but you know, sometimes things like that happen. So, you know, some people might love it. I mean, I loathe it, these pink flamingos, but in many ways, maybe they do work.
Yes, yes. They need a bit of retouching though. They're getting a bit faded.
Yeah. It's a little bit.
Yeah. So Marty, I've noticed that we have a mall, and then, you know, within 2 minutes walk down, you have a shop lot. So what was the whole idea in terms of the master plan of building both so near each other? I mean, we always talk about cannibalizing and, you know, competition.
Yeah. So the first thing that I want to point out is kudos to Gamuda for even building the mall before they build the residential. That's unheard of in the development world. Right. So the mall was built premised on the fact that the community already needed this convenience. And because of that, that had a ripple value effect on the residential housing prices that is in Twentyfive7, which if you notice is about 10 to 15% higher than the surrounding.
Right.
And then you ask, why is therefore then a repeat of some of these in the shops? So the shops is actually that 8% retail that's supposed to serve the Amber residents so that it's convenient for the resident. I mean, we truly believe, but it's also a planning requirement that when you have high rise, there's a certain percentage of GFA that's allocated to convenience. So shops that's supposed to only serve the residents, but the way it's planned, like I said, is in totality.
Right.
So there's actually a string of shop lots, not your traditional shop lots, that's meant to line this area, emanating from the mall. So that's part of the bigger master plan that's being realized. Right. But I think Gamuda, I mean, to give them credit, they're very clever about how they position what's in the mall, what's not in the mall, what's sold, what's kept. So that has allowed the business ecosystem to not be cannibalistic of each other. Right. So it's all working as an entire business ecosystem. So I've got many friends who actually live here now. So many of them have actually moved out of the old Kota Kemuning and are buying properties here because the architecture is so compelling. So architecture does have a role here.
Yes.
It does help that it's convenient. It's extremely convenient with the mall. Gamuda Walk, unfortunately, is a complete disaster. As you know, that was the old Kota Kemuning and that was the mall there.
Right.
It's owned by the same people, and yet this is so successful because it's thought through, and that one was sort of a resultant of some actions along the way, so that wasn't so successful. So people actually love this place.
Right. So from what you say, I mean, I think that the fact that you wore the placemaking hat at the master plan stage has led to a 15 to 20% rise or appreciation in house prices. Right.
Yeah.
And-
so at the onset,
yeah.
I'm not just talking about the appreciation, but I'm just talking at the onset. When Gamuda sell the houses, they can sell it at up to 30% higher than the neighbors. And most importantly, it's become so unique. People remember 25/7 differently from the rest of the development.
Yeah, yeah.
People see this as a community. People don't necessarily see the rest of the development as little communities.
Yeah. So I love the fact that the space has so many components that people are able to go to their little favorite section. Right?
Correct.
And
Correct.
still have that peace of mind, still being able to like frolic with their kids.
Yeah.
So I think that, this is my first time here. I'm really impressed. So well done, Gamuda. And we have to mention that they didn't pay for this segment at all. So we're just looking at the best case studies, and it's nice to be able to kind of sit here in Malaysia and enjoy this place.
Yeah.
So yeah, well done.
But if Gamuda isn't careful, you end up with a hodgepodge. I'm seeing Mondrian entrances and the pink flamingos. So you've got to be very careful.
Yeah.
You might end up like some other developers.
Just mind the artifice, right?
Yes.
Instead of
yes.
mind the gap.
Less is more.
Mind the
Jia-Ping.
artifice. Okay. Thank you so
Sometimes-
much. Yes, less is more. Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
Sometimes we kind of OTT, everything, right?
Yeah.
Over the top everything.
Yeah, and there's no need.
Yeah,
We could have
yeah.
saved at least 200,000 from that. Just looking, I was like, I'm going to pay all that money for that.
Yeah, so so I've been discussing TODs with another municipal council, and I said, perhaps you need to form a expert committee or have a values-based narrative,
Yeah.
right? Rather
Yes.
than so the main thing that we love to do is to parcel things out,
Yes.
and everybody is working on their own agendas, and so there's no overarching values that protects the community.
Correct.
So it's almost like, okay, let's see how we can optimize the value for our sake
Yeah, benefit from
against
that.
the competitor in the next lot and the
Yeah.
next lot. And I feel the community is made poorer for this.
Correct.
You know.
And then you leave that bit to the NGO, so they become these really angry tree huggers, right? You can't blame them.
Yes, well, I mean, for me, I don't normally hug trees, but I'm getting to a point where if I stay in this this role for much longer, I'm going to be an angry tree
Yeah,
hugger.
you will be. You will
Right?
become.
Because you then say, guys, why don't you see it?
Correct.
Why can't you just bring back your humanity or being a human person and walk into this place rather than be so divorced from everything, right? To say, this is my professional hat and this is my father, mother, sister,
Yeah.
brother,
It's all
son
intertwined,
hat,
right?
And so this whole ability to compartmentalize who we are, I feel, is the crux of our problem right now as we're building cities.
Yes.
I mean, on a philosophical and spiritual level, I feel one of the first things that we really need to do is, let's bring back the humanness.
Correct.
Let's really, for ourselves, understand what is it that makes humans happy.
Yeah.
Or we talk about lovable cities, and I'm thinking, it's just words. All I hear is just empty words.
Yes.
And stop making them branding or marketing words. Your market is so much more sophisticated now than
Yes.
they were 20 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's my little rant.
No, but
Yeah.
it's not a rant, right? It's
Yeah.
really how you truly feel, and many people probably feel the same way. But we need to get together and in a concerted effort, no matter how big or small, realize that we can have an impact. But we also need to have that tenacity to keep us going, and funding,
Yes,
right?
yes.
At the end of the day, money speaks. So, developers such as Gamuda started it, and Datuk Lin is a true believer of placemaking. As a developer, if your place isn't working out, the first thing you need to do is a place audit to find out exactly what's wrong with it. If the problem is planning, to be honest, there's very little you can do about it unless you're willing to spend some money and redo the infrastructure.
Right.
But if the problem is something simpler, or not simpler, but it's something that you can solve, right? Like, you need it to then just put the entrance somewhere else where people can see, or you need to make pedestrian movement easier, then just do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you need to get the right people to be able to assess and identify what the problem is and then provide a solution. I think many developers are not, we've seen it, Jia-Ping, many times through. They call us in and then they take us out halfway through the project thinking they can do it themselves.
Yes.
So I work on a very simple, sort of four-pronged approach, which is community. You first need to acknowledge the community or communities there. And then you look at collaboration, or before that, you look at creation. So what do you create with the community? And then how you collaborate with them and how you partner with them. After that, you look at the partnership and the economy that it will generate. So it's like a circular economy that results from this, but starting from the community.
Seeing this place, what, 5 years after you've left it or imagined it, what are some of your observations?
So, you know, the funny thing is all those things that you mentioned, much as they grew organically, they have to be planned for and designed for, you know. The organic growth can only happen after a very successful plan has been executed. And in many instances in Malaysia, actually the townships are planned not very well, right? So they should seriously consider putting placemaking as a subject, not just in School of Architecture, but also in planning, landscape, whatever. But it should be entrenched. And not just these traditional courses. You should also look at maybe some of like social media and business and communication. The idea of placemaking should also come from them because they talk about it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So the sustainability that we talk about now, placemaking should be in the core of the sustainability discussion because it is about the people.
Yeah.
It is about the life of those spaces.
And it's the soul of the place, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Put it simply. If there's the one definition we should agree on, is that placemaking should be the soul of the place.
I feel that if 25/7 doesn't overexpand, it will be a gem, a little gem in the Kota Kemuning community. So the trick of every development is the balance between density and human scale. So human scale versus density, I feel that, you know, I really need to get the expert to talk about that. So guess who I brought back to Studio Seoul Cities? Mardi.
Hi everyone.
Welcome back.
I am back. So typically in any development, there is an art and a bit of a science to it. You need to find the perfect balance between density, which is how crowded it's going to be, how crowded the roads are going to be, how tall the buildings will end up being, with how comfortable it would be for a person sitting and walking through that piece of city fabric.
If I were to ask you, what are the places that you feel have soul? I mean, first in KL and then maybe around the world, where would you sort of say?
So I guess from a developer's perspective, one of the most successful places in all of Klang Valley would be Desert Park City. But Desert Park City, if you know the backstory, wasn't planned to be so perfect. The developers took a risk. They built something completely 30% more expensive than everyone else in Manjalara, you know, at a time when nobody wanted to live in Manjalara, for example. But they were committed and they were confident that this is the product that people wanted. There's life in the street that isn't programmed. And then as you walk along, maybe every 10 minutes, you have Mont Kiara Meridian, and then you can stop for your satay, your fish head noodle, and then you keep walking a little bit more and can take a breather where Porto Romano has been there for a very long time. And every 5 minutes, you can take a breather because the retail is kind of, I think, organically, I mean, unintentionally interspersed that way. So you feel that there isn't a vacuum. In many places that we walk through, unless there are rows of shop lots lining the streets, you suddenly fall into a vacuum. There's nothing.
So it's not about build them and they will come, or build them because you wanted it, but really understand who you're building for, which is actually marketing 101, right?
Yes.
It's strange how my life has come, you know, full circle.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about the reasons why you need placemaking, but we really haven't talked about what are the challenges we've been having in Malaysia for this placemaking movement to grow.
Other than developers not being able to really understand what placemaking is other than that. It's also, well, it stems from that, right? It stems from the lack of understanding of, number one, what defines and what are the boundaries of placemaking they can contribute to. And the most important thing is the business ecosystem. Even if you've got the best planning, even if you've got the most beautiful building, if you don't set out to do a proper business ecosystem at the onset and then support that business ecosystem, then it will definitely fail.
So can you unpack business ecosystem for me?
So there are places here, if you notice, and the developers come with very noble intentions, for example, of setting an art quarter somewhere, say in the central area.
Yeah.
No names.
Yes.
And you can see a lot of money has been pumped into creating the infrastructure. So that's the hardware.
Yes, absolutely.
The hardware is missing, the software, never mind, right? So if you are transplanting a use, like a destination in an area where you see at some point more cows than humans, then you need to know how far are you from that ambition of yours, and what is it that you need? How much do you need to put in to make sure that that vision is realized?
It's always nice to look back at your legacy. And I'm just wondering, have you met people in these townships that you've helped design and spoken to them and gotten their feedback?
So when we were doing 25/7, and this was before it was ready, we could already see that through the way we explained what we were going to be doing in 25/7 and how different it was going to be from the other developments in and around the area. We managed to convert some of the buyers and stole the buyers from the other side to then buy in 25/7. And now that it's ready, people who bought, so I've got some friends who actually bought, good for them. They say that they feel that they're coming home, really coming home, right? And then they're happy that they don't have to travel so far for their loaf of bread, and they find it easy. That you can see today as well when we were in the cafe that families were gathering, people were, you know, having a good Sunday brunch, and the kids were playing, and I felt that sense of community even when I was there. And then there are those who say, thanks to what Gamuda's done, from the point of view that they paid their 10% to now, if they were going to put it out in the open market, their property values would have maybe increased by another 15 to 20% just like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know, for investors particularly, it would make sense.
Yes.
I mean, for us who buy to live, then it's just a notion that we've chosen the best place to live, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that if Gamuda follows this methodology, it kind of seals them as a brand of repute and of human scale design, right? And you know, a lot of young people now look for these things. So your brand also elevates. Yes.
So if Gamuda was previously known for like really robust, good engineering solutions, and their houses are built really strong and will last forever, I think now you can see that softer side of Gamuda coming through in these spaces. I haven't been to Gamuda Gardens lately, but they say it's also the same.
Oh,
so there is
that's
that.
lovely to hear.
Yes.
And ultimately for me, when developers do that, it's a win-win. It's a win for the community, and it's really a win for the developers, as well as for the nation, because, you know, you're really upping the whole quality of life, right?
Earnestly doing
Yes,
that.
yeah. Mardiana Rahayu's work at 25/7 is more than just architecture and urban planning. It's about creating spaces where people truly belong. By placing the community at the heart of her designs, she has shown us that thoughtful placemaking can transform not just landscapes, but lives. Placemakers like her remind us that the true measure of a city's success lies in the strength and vibrancy of its communities.